There we go. All right, it's a minute after. Welcome everyone to today's webinar with Sonos. My name is Sean Dixon. Some of you I've met before, others I'm sure you've seen emails from me. Appreciate you guys jumping on today's webinar. So I manage the AV Leap program as well as other programs here at ADI, and just want to thank you for being a part of the program. Thank you for joining today. Hopefully everybody is staying safe. Hopefully everybody is staying busy and maybe even seeing business pick up. Although I don't know that it really ever slowed down much in the residential space over the last 15 months or so, but I'm looking forward to meeting some of you online here in person once we start getting back out and traveling or seeing you at trade shows and so forth. We are almost at the mid-year point in the AV Leap program. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at how you're doing in the program, how your purchases are against goal. Want to make sure you are all maximizing your program for the year and maximizing the rebate opportunities that are out there for you. So if you have any questions on that, reach out to myself, reach out to your local ADI rep. We're all here and happy to help you. So joining us today is JT Pruitt from Sonos, Senior National Trainer. He's going to take us through the home theater and outdoor experience with Sonos. And then JT, I'll let you introduce Ryan.
Yeah.
And I'll just turn things over to you and let you take it away. There'll be time for Q&A at the end and also during. So encourage everyone to type your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll definitely get to those throughout the training, if not at the end. So JT, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Thanks everyone for having me. I'm going to go ahead and shut my video off just in case my bandwidth gets a little crazy. I want to make sure that nothing is interrupted. Like Sean said, my name is JT Pruitt. I am a senior national trainer for Sonos. I've been with Sonos going on my 8th year now. So I've been with Sonos almost at this point, it seems almost like a decade. It seems a lot longer than it actually is. But today we're going to talk about home theater and the outdoor experience and what that really looks like. We're going to talk about a lot of different things that encompass all of that. But I do want to go ahead and introduce my colleague, my partner in crime, the guy behind the glass, as I like to say, Mr. Ryan Handerhan. He will be answering any of those questions that you may have in the Q&A. There is 2 sections of your Zoom. One is a chat, one is a Q&A. Please log all of your questions in the Q&A. That way we can see it a little bit easier. Feel free to ask any of those questions throughout the webinar. And then, of course, we are going to open it up at the very end to answer some of those live. Now, webinars is kind of what we've turned to over the past year and a half and have really become, a standard in the industry. It's something we do really on a monthly basis, but we also produce a really incredible podcast called the Sonos Solutions Podcast that really takes a lot of our webinars and kind of puts it into digital form. We also have interviews with other partners in the industry. And really, it's just a great way to learn. We try to keep everything about 30 minutes. So if you're on your way to the job site or you need to learn about something new, maybe it's a new product that just comes out, you can always check us out at SoundCloud and it's Sonos Solutions Podcast. Pretty easy. So on today's agenda, we're going to talk about some quick updates, some updates that have happened recently. We're going to talk about our home theater products, a little bit of control. We're going to talk about outdoor sound best practices, and then we're going to open it up for that Q&A. So first and foremost, let's get to a couple of the updates. So beginning May 11th, we actually updated the Sonos One SL hardware features. So meaning there's no acoustic changes or anything like that. It's just the internals of the product are made a little bit better. So these features or the updates to the hardware means there is a change in the Sonos One SL itself. So starting May 11th, which was a little bit over a month ago, all new and unregistered Sonos One SLs would only work on a S2 system. Now, if you have Sonos One SLs that are in an S1 system currently, no big deal. They're going to work as is. But everything going forward, like we have said for really almost a little over a year and a half, everything that we come out with going forward from March of 2020 will be S2. So this was a change that made it really incompatible with S1. Now, if you do have any issues with customers that want to stay on that S1 system and they're looking to get a Sonos One SL, this is not affecting the Sonos One. So the difference between the two, again, just so you are aware, the Sonos One SL has no microphones. It has no Amazon or Google Assistant built into it, where the Sonos One does. So you can always just sell them that one instead and still be good to go. We also had a couple of updates around our port, which is I'm super excited about, as well as height control and a new thing called suggested services. So port dual mono has been a top request in the CI channel for a little bit over 2 years. Now, what this means is you're able to go into the room settings of the port and toggle it from stereo output to mono. So this is now available. This has always been available for the Sonos amp. However, it was not available up until about a month ago on the Sonos port. And this came directly from feedback from dealers, which was even better. We were actually able to take that feedback and make a quick pivot to bring a new feature to a product that was already a couple of years old. So this is great for outdoors where stereo just doesn't make a ton of sense. Of course, those oddly shaped rooms, they now can have consistent audio experience throughout all of the speakers. We've also added height control for those for the Sonos Arc. So again, available in the room settings, just like the rear volume controls, height channel control is now available. So for those ceilings, or for those homes that have high ceilings, you're able to add the next level of customization to that Sonos Arc that is delivering that Dolby Atmos sound. So it goes from 0 to +10. So you're able to kind of get your customers a little bit more immersed inside of the audio experience. We've also added suggested services. So when you are setting up a new system, particularly, I will call this out when you're using a client's phone to set up that new system. The Sonos app is gonna scan the phone and determine what music apps are currently available. So, for example, I don't use Apple Music, but I get a pop-up saying, "Hey, there's Apple Music on your phone. Would you like to add it into Sonos?" For me, I don't use Apple Music. I use Spotify, so I can either bring that in or just say no. It is important to call out, if you're using your own phone for setup, that you're not adding your music services to the client's system. Again, it's going to scan that phone, recognize everything that's on there, and say, "Hey, you can play this through Sonos. Do you want to do so? Yes or no?" Now let's get into kind of the nitty gritty. Handy, was there a quick question in the chat that we wanted to kind of get out of the way?
Not currently. We'll answer it at the end.
Okay. Just making sure. So let's get into the nitty gritty of the home theater. So we have 2 home theater products, really 3, and we're going to talk about all of them coming up. First and foremost, we're going to talk about some of the new codecs that are out there talking about Dolby Atmos. Most of you know what it is, but I'm going to cover it again anyways. Dolby Atmos is a term that is a 3D object-based sound format where sound is mixed independently of specific speaker placement. What's great about this is now we have all of this support from all of the major studios, including streaming services, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Paramount, and Universal. And there's already almost 400 titles released in Atmos. And with the pandemic that happened last year, of course, everything has now been brought into your home. Everybody wants to kind of create that movie experience inside their home without having to go anywhere. So for so long, we had the Sonos Playbar that was really one of the most successful soundbars of all time. And while it was a great soundbar, it was time for the next evolution. So about a year ago, I believe May of 2020, we launched the Sonos Arc. It's the premium smart soundbar for Sonos, or from Sonos, for TV, movies, music, gaming, and of course, much more. Now, I didn't tell you about 3D Atmos to tell you that the Sonos Arc does not come with it. Of course it does. It does come equipped with 3D sound for Dolby Atmos to deliver all that popular content that everybody is wanting to get today. Of course, it's tuned to perfection with TruePlay. Now, TruePlay is a product, or a software product, that we released almost 6 years ago at this point, that allows us to take our products and completely change the EQ from the ground up according to the room. Of course, this is using an iOS device. But it also comes with a technology that doesn't get talked about a lot. Phased array is something that we've had on almost all of our products since the beginning, and the ARC kind of took it to the next level. So phased array allows the ARC to create a more realistic 3D audio sound. And if you look at the screen here, you see the ARC in the middle, and you see lines on the left, the center, and the right. Now, if you're watching a movie like Top Gun, for example, when that plane goes left to right, you actually want to make sure that it actually goes left to right on the sound. So when that plane goes off the screen, the right-hand speaker is going to project as loudly as it can to give you the sense of it going off the screen. On the left-hand side, however, it's actually going to create a negative effect. So it's actually going to give us this effect of having a much bigger sound stage than we actually have. Of course, it has upward firing waveguides, which allows us to create that 3D audio experience. Probably one of my favorite pictures of the Sonos Arc. It's got 11 drivers, 11 amplifiers. Of course, you can see the 2 top firing speakers for Dolby Atmos. On the back, things have changed just a little bit. You have your power cord, you've got your sync button, of course, if you've got your Ethernet cable port if you want to hardwire it, but it does come equipped with HDMI enhanced audio return channel. Now, enhanced audio return channel allows us to support high bandwidth codecs like Dolby Atmos to deliver that great rich experience while still remaining backwards compatible with regular audio return channel. Now in 2021, almost every TV at this point, especially ones that you guys sell, is going to come equipped with enhanced audio return channel. With that being said, I always think it's a good idea to kind of take a look at what cable or audio codecs are able to be achieved. Of course, through optical, the highest you're going to get is Dolby Digital 5.1 or Dolby Digital 2.0 or PCM. Now, HDMI audio return channel still supports a form of Atmos. It supports Dolby Digital Plus, which is probably the most common form of Atmos, specifically when you're talking about things coming from Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max. Even though it is Atmos, it is a compressed version of Atmos, and some TVs through audio return channel do support it. Of course, you can still get your Dolby Digital 5.1 and Dolby Digital 2.0. And now with enhanced audio return channel, that's where things get a little bit more, not complicated, just a little bit more intricate. Now, in order to get the Atmos codecs of Dolby Digital True HD, Dolby Digital Matte, or even you do have to have that enhanced audio return channel. Most of the time, the only time you're going to get Dolby Digital True HD is through a 4K Blu-ray player. Dolby Digital Matte is typically coming from something like an Apple TV. And the Sonos Arc also supports LPCM. So this was a big update after the Sonos Arc launched, because a lot of gaming equipment only gives out LPCM. So we made sure to add that after the Sonos Arc was launched. Now, of course, it is mountable, just like any other soundbar, but I do want to take time to call out the uniqueness of using the Sonos Arc mount with the Sonos Arc. Now, you can use third-party mounts. That's fine. The only thing I would say to that is make sure you utilize TruePlay at any given time, whether you're using our mount or a third party, but specifically if you are using a third party, make sure you're running TruePlay. And the reason is the Sonos Arc and the Sonos Arc wall mount actually have sensors inside of them. When it is connected together, those sensors get turned on and turn the Arc into an on-wall mode, meaning it knows it's being mounted to the wall, and it's going to change its EQ automatically. Using a third-party mount, while it's still fine, it's not going to turn on that on-wall mode, so you do need to run TruePlay afterwards. We brought the Sonos Arc into 2020 and gave it Apple AirPlay 2. So every single Sonos product at this point in the current lineup, supports Apple AirPlay 2. And then, of course, it does have automatic remote sync if you're using CEC. But if you're using that optical adapter, there is an IR repeater at the bottom, so it doesn't block any of the signal. Just like a lot of our other products, it does come equipped with Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa. You don't have to use it. It is a choice. It is going to be off by default. You do have to go back in and set it up. And it can be controlled at your fingertips just by touching the volume up, volume down, swiping left or swiping right if you're listening to music. Now, we do have another soundbar in the lineup, and it's the Beam. And it's really the smart compact soundbar for TV, music, and more. But really, when you think about the Sonos Beam, I want you to think of it. Oh, that was a quick transition. I want you to think of the Sonos Beam as kind of that secondary room. Now, we know when we built the Beam that if there was 5 TVs in a home, only 2 of them had sound. So that meant, wow, I'm just going to leave it on this screen because it just keeps going through the presentation. So that we know that, if there's 5 TVs in a home, 2 of them have sound. And that's really a bad experience for everyone. I have no idea what's going on with my PowerPoint, but we're just gonna stop it right there. So the soundbar, the Beam, allows us to get those extra rooms that may not have been an option before. Think of something like a loft, a kid's playroom, or even a master bedroom where maybe an arc or even a play bar for that matter is just too overpowering. Now the Sonos Sub, which you've seen on the screen now twice because it just keeps coming through, is the wireless subwoofer that really has been one of our staples for a very long time. You can hear and feel the difference when you connect Sub to any product in the Sonos lineup. Now, we have changed the Sub just a little bit. Sub Gen 3, which came out last year as well, has a couple of new things to it. It's got a new join button, so it doesn't have that little square button anymore. It is a round button, but it is still the same iconic design and, of course, the same great sound. The internals have been updated, of course, which allows us to do this. Again, by popular demand, specifically from our dealers, you can now add 2 Sonos subs to any home theater configuration. So any home theater configuration would be Arc, Beam, Playbar, Playbase, and even Amp, as a matter of fact. Now, the speaker placement or the sub placement can be done in a couple of different ways. You can set them on either side of the room to really give you great distribution of bass, or you can sit them side by side for better phasing. And it's a really quick setup process. You just go into the Sonos app, you've already got one sub, you click add another, and you're good to go. And then, of course, it's going to prompt you and ask you, do you want to run TruePlay? And the answer is always yes. Now, dual sub is great for those larger, oddly shaped rooms that can really now get that better bass distribution. I mentioned that you can place 2 subs next to each other for better phasing, or you can have them opposite sides of the room that really give you better coverage throughout the entire room. Now, there is one caveat to dual sub, and I talked about Sub Gen 3 being launched back in May of 2020. In order to accomplish dual sub, you do have to have 2 things. You do have to be on the S2 app, and you do have to have at least one Gen 3 sub. From there, you can have a Gen 1 sub paired with a Gen 2 with a Gen 3 sub. In my home, I have Sonos Arc paired with a Gen 3 sub and a Gen 2 sub. So as long as you have that Gen 3 sub, you're able to unlock dual sub. Now, we also understand that not everybody wants to have an experience where you have a soundbar. Sometimes customers really come to you guys looking for that custom experience of kind of having their sound disappear. Sonance, which is a great partner of ours, always has this one saying, it's how do you want your sound to look? And that's also true in the home theater space as well. And the Sonos amp, while it's really great for being used for in ceilings, outdoors, it can also be utilized as a television speaker as well. It's got your device controls on the front. It does have an IR receiver at the back or on the front. So it can be used with that HDMI to optical adapter that we have. Of course, it does have HDMI, which we're going to get to right now. It does have HDMI on the back, so you're able to plug it directly into a TV using audio return channel. It does have a subwoofer output, meaning you can connect a third-party sub to the Sonos amp and adjust that crossover frequency from 50 to 110 in 10 increments. The binding posts, while we didn't change the world with this, the binding posts are removable, and they are Phoenix connectors that accept 10 to 18 gauge wires. And you can either use the binding post or you can use standard banana plugs, whichever you choose. The HDMI port is also accompanied with an analog input, so being able to take that stereo RCA connection, whether it's a turntable, a CD player, or even a computer, and then you can still configure that in the autoplay settings. So as soon as you drop the needle on that turntable, it'll change the amp over and you're good to go. Now the HDMI connection can be used a couple of different ways. You can add a single amp for your fronts. So in what we would call a 2.0 or a 2.1. Now that sounds really weird when you're talking about home theater because everything's in Dolby and you have a left, a center, and a right. We're actually taking the center channel, and because we can't physically call it, a center channel, we have a phantom center. So we're blending the left and the right together. So you can use a Sonos amp up front, a Sonos amp in the rears, or a mixture of Sonos 1s or Sonos 5s, and create technically a 5.1. We can't call it that. We call it a 4.1 with that phantom center that really makes that sound disappear and sounds tremendous. Now for your Ethernet ports, we still have those 2 Ethernet ports on the back, so you can hardwire directly to the rack or the switch. Now with home theater with amp, just a quick wiring diagram. So we have 2 amps. They're both up front in this diagram. They don't have to be up front. This is just for visualization purposes. You have 1 amp powering the fronts, 1 amp powering the rears, and of course a sub, which now allows that blue line to connect to the TV. And you have a really elegant, turn that off. You have a really good, elegant experience when it comes to home theater. Of course, you can still add that dual sub as long as you have that sub Gen 3. Now, also a couple of years ago, we came out with I mentioned Sonance in this presentation earlier. We came out with 3 different pairs of speakers called Sonos by Sonance. They're a pair of in-wall, in-ceiling, and outdoor that are really designed to pair with the Sonos amp. Now, while it does have Sonance on the end of them, it is a Sonos speaker from top to bottom. Everything about it we made, we designed, and we really paired it with the Sonos amp. Sonance is such a tremendous partner that helped us manufacture these because they're really good at making those architectural speakers and really know what they're supposed to sound like. What's great about the Sonos by Sonance speakers is you can actually run 3 pair off of 1 single amp. It does have an optimized DSP for the outdoor speakers, and for the indoors, for the in-walls and the in-ceilings, you can actually run TruePlay on a set of passive speakers, which has never really been done before. So Sonos by Sonance in-ceilings, it's got that 6.5-inch woofer. It's got a tweeter to it, and then it's got this really elegant design grille that takes the same color as the rest of the Sonos products, which we call Sonos White. Same with the in-walls, really thin grille here, Sonos White, and they are paintable, so you can paint them. I would recommend using a sprayer with them as well. And then, of course, the outdoor speakers that are awesome. They sound incredible. You can pair them with an amp. And really, you could take advantage of that dual mono from an outdoor perspective, putting 6 of these off of 1 amp in dual mono, so everything is playing at the same time, and really, kind of make your neighbors a little bit mad. Now, let's get into some outdoor stuff real quick. We're on the home stretch here, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. Now, we have several different ways of talking about outdoor, but first and foremost, I did want to take the time to talk about our newest product, the portable smart speaker from Sonos, the Sonos Roam. So the Sonos Roam is really ready for any adventure. It's got an IP rating of IP67, which means it's fully waterproof and dustproof, and those silicone end caps protect against drops and turbulence when just thrown in a bag. Now, there is a caveat to that waterproof. Of course, it can be submerged, or of course it's waterproof, but it can be submerged in 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes. Take it out, shake it off, and you're good to go. Just like a lot of our other products, it is a small speaker with a big sound, and its precision engineered acoustics create rich, detailed sound that defies the expectations of the speaker. And this is the first speaker that actually uses Class H amplification from us, which is nothing new to the industry, but for Sonos, it was a big step because it allows us to drive a small speaker at a very efficient level. Looking at the product itself, it's got a microphone button. So many like our other products, it does have Amazon and as well as Google Assistant. That microphone can be turned on and off, but it does have physical tactile buttons, which is completely different than anything that's currently in our lineup today. And the reason is if you're utilizing this on an outdoor, or maybe you're on a boat, whatever it may be, you don't want to have to deal with that touch capacitive. Tactile makes a little bit more sense. On the back, you've got your feet, you've got your power button, of course, and your USB-C port, which is the primary way of charging. Now with the Sonos Roam, we do have this new feature called Sound Swap, and it is initiated from the Sonos Roam. So Sound Swap is very similar to press to group. So if you're not familiar, if you press and hold play pause on any of our speakers that is not currently playing music, it will search the system to see what is playing music and group itself with whatever is playing. Press and hold is a variation of that. Or I'm sorry, Sound Swap is a variation of that. Sound Swap, when you press the play pause button on the Sonos Roam, there will be a inaudible chirp that the rest of the system can hear that you will not be able to hear. It will search the room and say, or search the home and say, what is the closest speaker to me? In this case, you have a Sonos One on the screen and it's the closest speaker. That sound that is playing on the Sonos Roam will then stop and be sent directly to the closest speaker. If you press and hold that button again, it's going to take that music away from the Sonos Roam or from the Sonos One and give it back to the Sonos Roam. Now, it is the first speaker that we've ever made that does Wi-Fi and Bluetooth together, meaning they both work at the same time. So, of course, you can stream music over Wi-Fi through the Sonos app, and then, of course, be able to take this on the go. And Roam automatically connects to your Wi-Fi when you're back in range. But because we're able to do Bluetooth and Wi-Fi at the same time, this allows us to take any Bluetooth stream that is playing to the Roam and then group it with the rest of the Sonos systems in the home. So meaning if you're on an Android phone listening to a YouTube video and you're playing it to the Sonos Roam, you're in the house or you're in your Wi-Fi range. You can then open your Sonos app and then group that Sonos Roam stream with whatever speaker you want, and essentially unlocking a new feature that we've really never had before. Now, it does have up to a 10-hour battery life on a single charge. When Roam is not connected to power and not in use, it does fall asleep. However, this is to preserve battery. When you open the Sonos app or press a button on the Sonos Roam, it will wake it up in less than a second. And we also wanted to make sure that it worked with wireless charging. Now, we do sell our own version of that wireless charger that matches the color and the shape of the Sonos Roam, but it does work with any wireless charger that you may have around the home. Again, we already talked about it. It is hands-free from help of all of your assistants. Now, with the Sonos Roam, we understand that that's not always the first thought when we talk about outdoor products, and really neither is the Sonos Move, right? The Sonos Move is a little bit more powerful. It allows us to take the idea of big sound, but also still give that portability. When you're talking about the Sonos Roam, specifically to your customers, the way I would think about it is this. Every single one of your customers has a Bluetooth speaker that they take on vacation, they take to the pool, whatever it may be. What happens to those speakers when they come home is typically they just get thrown into a bag. So now you're able to provide a solution that not only works out of the home, but also works in the part of their system. My son loves the Sonos Roam because it's his size and he can pick it up and he can take it with him and carry it around. Obviously, the Move is a little bit more heavier for him. Now, when you think of the Sonos Move, it's a little bit of a step up. It's maybe those condos or those apartments where you can't physically hardwire speakers to a patio. This still gives great sound experience outdoors while still providing music on the inside, and you can also take it with you on vacation. So the Move has a battery light on the front that's 4 lights. So of course 4 would be, it's 100%, down to 2 would be 50%, so forth. The LED light at the top is the status indicator. When that light is white, it is on Wi-Fi. When you tap the button on the back and change it into Bluetooth, that light becomes blue. Now it does come with the charging base inside the box. And it does have a couple of things on the back, a power button, and then of course being able to change it from Wi-Fi to Bluetooth just by tapping a single button on the back. And then your join button, which is the only time you're ever going to do this is when you're adding it to a system. Again, this is a little bit different than the Sonos Move. Excuse me, I just took a drink of water. It's Wi-Fi at home and then Bluetooth everywhere else. The Sonos Roam, on the other hand, does work congruent, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi at the same time. Just like a lot of our other products, of course, does have voice control. And it is IP56 rated, meaning while the Sonos Roam is 67, it's waterproof. This is weather resistant, so it can get rained on. You can wash it down with a water hose. I take the Sonos Move to the beach with me, and then when I'm done, to get the sand out, I just hit it with a water hose. Of course, not overly spraying it too hard, but still being able to hit it with the water hose, get it cleaned off, and ready to go. It is ultra durable, and it has an 11-hour battery life. Now, the Sonos Move was the first speaker in our lineup that allowed us to do auto true play. And the Sonos Roam also has this feature. The thing about auto true play is when you pick it up and you put it back down, you want it to sound the same no matter where you are. And that's what auto true play does. It does not come automatically turned on in the box. You do have to physically turn it on inside of the Sonos app. Now, we've talked about home theater. We've talked about all of that together, right? Outdoor sound with amp. We've talked about it with amp with home theater. But we also know that there's another market out there that loves music, but also wants to be able to do a little bit more customization. And that's where the Sonos port comes into play. The Sonos port allows you to take any system, whether it's an AVR, whether it's an outdoor amplifier, and give it Sonos. Now, it does have a couple of things. It's got that audio line in, so your record player, your CD changer, or really any other source that you want to bring into the Sonos ecosystem. And then, of course, it's got that 12-volt trigger output, which automatically turns on the amplifier just by hitting play on the Sonos app. On the back, you also have your analog output and your digital coax output. This is how you would connect it to whether it's an AVR or even a multi-channel amplifier. And then, of course, for you guys that love the hardwire, it's still there, still ready to roll. And of course, the beauty about the new Sonos amp and the Sonos port is they look so much better in a rack than the old Sonos Connect and Connect amp. Now, we are officially into the home stretch here. And I want to talk about wiring and configurations and kind of some best practices. Now, when you hear anybody talk at Sonos, you're going to hear a couple of different keywords, specifically when we're talking about home theater wiring. The speaker that is connected to the television is always going to be the home theater coordinator. Everything else is going to be considered the bonded players, meaning they're going to bond to that home theater coordinator. Now, it is important to call out that when you bond a product to a coordinator, in this case, let's say it's an ARC and an amp and a sub, those players bond to that coordinator over a 5 gigahertz network. Meaning, and we do this for latency purposes, when you're watching television, the last thing you want to make sure is you don't want to have any latency when it comes to audio. So they do bond over a 5 gigahertz network. Now, with that being said, we all know how that works. So range comes into play, specifically when we're talking about utilizing a Sonos amp as rears with in-ceilings. We want to make sure that you can do a lot of different things. And we want to make sure that you guys understand the wiring configurations possible. A lot of the times you'll have an amp that's just in a rack, and that's where the speaker wires are ran, and it's paired with that ARC that's 25 to 30 feet away. And you'll have the first instinct of saying, I'll just plug the amp into the network. I hate to burst your bubble, but that will not work. If you just plug in the rear amp to the switch, it's actually going to force it to 2.4, and it will not allow it to bond to that Sonos Arc. So there are some rules. You either need to hardwire everything just because you can. So that means hardwire the rears, the sub, as well as the home theater coordinator. You hardwire nothing at all, or you hardwire just the front. The last piece of that information would be if you cannot get a wire to that home theater coordinator and that amp is 30 feet away, you're going to have to move that amp because it's just not going to bond to that home theater coordinator. Remote sync, we've talked about this with CEC. Of course, HDMI makes it super simple. We really don't have any programming. However, all of our soundbars, the Beam, as well as the Sonos Arc and the Sonos Amp can be used with the optical adapter. They all have those IR repeaters at the bottom and do need that line of sight. So if you're using optical adapter and a Bluetooth remote, really no problem. You know, we see this all the time now. Most TV manufacturers can force an IR signal through that remote. You just have to find it in the TV settings. There are a ton of support pages on sonos.com/support. If you just type in, hey, I'm looking for Samsung remote, you'll be able to find it pretty easily. The instructions, that is. Now, there are two things inside of the Sonos home theater ecosystem that are pretty important, and that's being able to enable speech enhancement for better dialogues, but also the do not disturb the neighbor options, the night sound that allows us to kind of cut down those loud sound effects at night so you're not bothering anybody else. Now, the last thing we want to touch on is audio delay. And that sucks. Audio delay is a no bueno thing, and there's really a variety of factors that can cause TV and video audio to be out of sync. With Sonos, you can actually adjust some of these things inside the room settings of whatever home theater coordinator it is to be able to match that TV. However, you may not be able to get it perfect all the times, and you do need to make sure you check your sources. For example, there is a known issue with any built-in app and HDMI audio return channel. Typically what happens is the built-in apps, there is no set standards for them. So that's kind of like the Wild Wild West where they really don't have anything. In this case, I would recommend a third-party source like a Roku or an Apple TV. Now, something new we've added in the past few months is the now playing screen. So we now have an in-app status detailing what signal the home theater coordinator is receiving from the TV. It started with the Sonos Arc, which you can see that Dolby Atmos logo in the bottom left-hand corner, but now it actually shows everything. So whether it's Dolby Digital 5.1, multi-channel PCM, whatever it may be. This is going to be a big help from you when that customer says, hey, I'm not getting surround sound. Well, what is your TV telling us, or what is the Sonos app telling us that it's receiving? This will allow you to kind of make a quick diagnosis without actually having to be on scene. Of course, Atmos is not always going to work natively output from a TV. You do have to check your sources, your TV, of course, and your cables. And then finally, check that now playing screen to see what you're receiving. Just for giggles here, like Sony's, you do have to actually go into each TV or each HDMI input and change the setting from standard to enhanced to allow you to receive Dolby Digital Atmos or Dolby Atmos. Something we've also added recently is outage notifications. So things happen and services go offline sometimes. It happens. Spotify was down a few months ago. Over the weekend, Pandora was down. So when a service is experiencing an outage and a customer is trying to use that service, they're going to get an error pop up at the top. And if they continue to try to use it, they'll get this banner at the bottom as well saying, hey, we can't connect to it. So that's a really quick, easy way for you all to diagnose things. But you can also utilize status.sonos.com that gives live reports of every service, scheduled maintenance, and of course, history of that maintenance at status.sonos.com/history. Last but not least, if you ever do have to call into support for anything, before doing anything, make sure you submit a diagnostic. So go to the settings tab, hit support, and then submit diagnostic. And also, if you reboot the system and then take a diagnostic, we will not be able to properly read that diagnostic. So we won't be able to see what happened before that reboot. So if something's going on and you do need to call, make sure you snag that diagnostic before you do any type of rebooting. Awesome. I want to invite Handy back in here to go over some Q&A.
Chewing on some chocolate. Just a second.
Sorry.
Thanks, JT. Looks like you answered a couple of those already, Ryan, but let's go ahead and run down these from the top. When do you expect to have normal delivery? I imagine it's probably referring to
Hot
ARC and
topic.
AMP.
Really, it's everything. I'll
Everything.
turn my video back on for that. It's a hot topic. Couple of things that I'll just kind of go ahead and get out of the way. So the world is experiencing a component shortage. Everything from washers and dryers to refrigerators to consumer electronics, even to Ford and Chevy, for example, who stopped production on their cars because they couldn't get these components. We are also affected by that. We are working tirelessly, trying to get caught up as best we can. I can't give you a date because I just don't know. If it was easy, everybody would have inventory. Unfortunately, it's just not us. It's kind of across the board, but we're trying real hard.
So you really don't want to throw out a timeline, right? Because
absolutely
okay.
not.
Got it.
Yeah, the reason I'm not going to throw out a timeline is because if that timeline changed, then you're going to come back to me.
Yeah.
Come back to me and say, well, JT said this, and honestly, it's an ongoing conversation that we have literally every day, trying to see where we are, what's going on. We're even taken to the point of renting planes and flying them to, flying our product in just to stay, not stay afloat. That's the wrong word, because we're fine. It's, making sure that you guys, the boats are staying afloat off the shore because they're not moving. But making sure that you guys are still aware. We do send out regular communication with ADI regarding inventory as well. So if you're not on those newsletters, make sure that you talk to whoever you need to talk to get on them.
Got it. There's another question there, and if there's any other questions you guys have, feel free to type them into the Q&A box. You want to address the impedance with hooking up 4 more speakers to the amp?
Yeah, Handy, you want to take that?
Yeah, that's no problem. So with the Sonos amp, you can hardwire more than just a pair of speakers, more than 2. You could hire 4, you could do 6 if you're using the Sonos by Sonance. It just comes down to that impedance on the speaker because the amp can support 2 ohms dynamically on that. So if you take, a standard 2 pair, you're running 8 ohms, that's totally fine. If you're running another set of pair, that's going to divide your impedance in half into 4 ohms. And then if you add another pair, again, you're going to divide that one more time into 2 ohms. So you'll be running straight off. I see Todd's follow-up question here. So you can certainly do it. The amp has enough power, but you are, cutting the wattage in half, and you're cutting the impedance in half. So you just got to be smart with what speakers you're using and then how fast or how loud you want to be playing music. As far as bi-amping, no, we don't recommend that because we have software controlled built into all the amps, and it's not like you can do a bi-amp or even run like monoblock style on the amp.
That would be sweet.
That would be sweet. We've seen some demos before. It's just like the cost benefit analysis is not strong. But, we don't recommend bi-amping, but the amp should be powerful enough for those situations. But then if you're dealing with something larger and longer, like more powerful than that, that's when the port comes into play. Use the port, hook it up to an amplifier that can really pump out the juice, and go for there.
Handy and I have both been in a location with 6 of the outdoor Sonos by Sonance off of one single amp in mono, and it was incredible. The Sonos amp it's 125 watts channel by 8 and by 8 ohms and 250 by 4. I don't know if I mentioned that. If I did, I apologize. If I didn't, I apologize. Handy, he kind of had a follow up. If I have amps, I would do that larger speakers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with the amp, it peaks at 225, I believe.
Yep. 250.
Yeah, 250. So you're not going to be getting the power you want out of that. That's when we'd recommend using a port on top of a big old beefy amp.
Also, before everybody starts jumping off, I wanted to just remind everyone we're doing a technical training at the same time next Wednesday. I know some of you are on this today's call are also signing up for that one. If you're not, definitely want to encourage you to carve out an hour or so of your time, same time next Wednesday. Would love to have you on that call. And then another training we have coming up July 7th is with Peerless, covering their new Neptune outdoor TVs. So outdoor season is upon us in most of the country, or most of North America. So, in addition to throwing some Sonos out there on the patio, around the pool, what have you, Peerless makes a great outdoor TV that they've just launched at some very disruptive price points. So would like to encourage everybody to sign up for that coming up in July. So let's see, are there any other questions we didn't get to?
We just had one come in. Tim just asked, recently wanted to add a Sonos sub to a room with a Sonos amp, but the rack or the amp is in the basement, an unfinished room in a rack. Seems to be too far away. Any options? So again, the sub is going to bond to the amp over that 5 gigahertz band for latency reasons. Really the only option, there's two options. You can one, move the amp, which is probably not an option. Or if you could figure out a way to get a network cable to that sub, that would work. I've also seen where installers have taken advantage of being able to use access points that have LAN options on them. So being able to hardwire both the amp as well as the sub, and should be good. Handy, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, you said the exact thing I was going to say.
Yeah. If you can't get a LAN cable from the sub to that unfinished room, maybe utilizing an access point that will allow you to hardwire the sub to that, maybe somewhere in that room. And this is also, I'll go ahead and kind of say this is not a secret by any means. This is something we're taking a look at specifically. I assume if you're using that amp, it's not for home theater, so you're using it for music. So we are trying to figure out if we can make things a little bit easier for bonding when you're talking about music over home theater. Home theater is always going to stay the same at 5 gigahertz because we definitely don't want any latency. But music doesn't take as much codec or as much juice to kind of go through. So it's definitely something we're taking a look at. I just have no answers for you today. But there's a couple options.
Okay, great. Any other questions from anyone?
Let's see here.
Thanks for being on, Tim, today. Hopefully, I think we'll see you on next week's training as well. I thought I saw you registered.
Yeah, and I know Keith said, gentlemen, thank you for your time. See you next week. Thanks, Keith. We'll see you next week. Next week's going to be kind of a technical. We're going to go a little bit slower. We're going to go over spanning tree protocol. We're going to go over audio fundamentals and how it pertains to Sonos. It's really one of our favorite presentations. So tell your friends.
And we did record this training. We'll also record next week's training. We'll have these up on our YouTube channel in the next 2 to 3 days. So if you wanted to review any of the material covered today, or anyone on your staff wanted to go back and watch this training that couldn't make the training today, it'll be up there on our YouTube channel. So just give it 2 or 3 days and you'll see it up there. Just go to adiglobal.com/webinars. You'll scroll down to the bottom of the screen and you'll see a link that'll link you to our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for being on today. If I can answer any questions offline, feel free to shoot me an email, and hopefully we'll see you on next Wednesday's technical training. So
I'll throw one more thing out there, Sean, too. If you
Go ahead.
guys have any more Sonos questions that maybe you think of later on this afternoon, or whatever, you can hit us up at webinar-support@sonos.com. That email goes to myself and Handy and a couple of other people. So if you have questions, throw them at us. and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Great. Thanks, JT. Thanks, Ryan, for being on today. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.